With October 20th only a week away, the race for municipal office across Alberta is now in its final moments. From every corner of the great province, candidates for mayor, reeve, and council are stepping forward for their last minute pitches. Now, in today's edition of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025, we are turning our attention to Brazeau County, Alberta, where we are honored and to sit down and speak with Council Candidate Jason Lavigne. Jason, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about your campaign as we enter in the final week of the campaign, which it seems very surreal as we literally started this campaign back in January 1st, 2025. But I got to start with a very simple question. As you were a first time guest on this show, where does your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Jason?
That actually came back well into 2022 when the convoy went out to Ottawa. I was just a homesteader trying to build a little life here for my family, and I was kind of captivated by the events that happened in Ottawa, mainly around how media was treating the events and how it was different online versus in the mainstream media. And that kind of pursued my desire to go ahead and get into journalism and to help the community to get involved in some way, shape, or form. And from that point on, I did a podcast, and I've been trying to be active in the community as well as running in the federal election in 2025 as well as a candidate for Parkland County.
So, what made you decide that in 2025 you're going to run for Brazeau County and Division 6 councillor?
I have two young boys, one with special needs, and we homeschool them. And I was actually quite concerned that the progress of the country was heading towards removing parental rights, including things like education. We saw that Quebec has actually very opposed to things like self-education or homeschooling. And I was worried that this would make its way across the country, but I wanted to get more involved to go ahead and participate in the future of my children, stand up for parental rights, and make sure that we actually had the option to do things like homeschool our children without interference from the government. So I was really concerned about that, and also having a special needs child. I was concerned that if we didn't stop this now, one of the ways they would stop homeschooling for specifically us is because we have a special needs child. They would maybe require some sort of requirement, like certification, before you can teach a special needs child. So I wanted to be active, get into the community, and make sure that I stood up for our parental rights in our future.
So, how do you see the role of a counselor? And I just want to put the square the peg for me, if you can, for a second, Jason. But how do you see the role of a counselor doing that? Because I I follow municipal politics, and that sounds like you would be better suited to run for school board trustee. So why decide municipal politics to advocate for the school choice?
Well, my wife is running for school board trustee, so our family is involved in that. So my wife is put herself forward for that. But on the municipal level, what I like to be is a bit of a community advocate and also fight for the community when it comes to government overreach as well, for things like the number of chickens that you're allowed to have and other issues on the bylaw level that the community and the county are involved in. Because I do want to be able to have my own rights as well when it comes to food production and make sure that my neighbors are satisfied with that as well. Because we've even seen some issues on the federal level where they're coming down on water, fertilizer, and other issues for farming. So between all of that, I wanted to make sure that on a municipal level, the bylaw level, and the community level, I was participating, bringing forward the voice of my neighbors and the rest of my family as well, to make sure that we can go ahead and have less government in our lives and go ahead and sustain and take care of ourselves. And with my wife taking on the trustee position, we kind of have both bases covered now: municipal bylaw and involvement, plus school board and education.
So the natural follow-up question to that statement would be, what do you see as a government overreach at the municipal level right now? Understandable bylaws, which is the name of the game that municipalities do, but what do you see your role as counselor going in there? Because you'll be one member of a team of, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe there's 7 counselors for Brazeau County. So that means you need a majority of your council members around that table to vote in favor or against any repeal of any bylaws. So how do you see yourself working within the, and I hate to use this word, but constructs of what the municipal government is right now?
Chris, that's an excellent question. So we do have 6 counselors plus the reeve, so 7 in council, as you pointed out there. And Brazeau's not that bad. Brazeau's not that bad. But if we take a look at places like Parkland, which is right to our east, they've already put in place bylaws for 10 chickens, for example. Plus, on a global level, there's some initiatives through ICLEI, which is a global agenda that's targeting the municipal level. We want to make sure stuff like that stays out of our council. I have had the pleasure to meet with several members of our council already to see where we can go in the future, how we can expand services and make sure that accountability and transparency is very readily available to our residents. Through things like technology, we can do that, through communication, through town hall meetings. There's ways that we could expand on the communication with our residents. And then also make sure that when it comes to the provincial level requirements, for example, provincial roads, we do overlap on some jurisdictions there. We make sure that we continue to fight for what's necessary here. For example, a good one would be ditchweed. When weed is let to go ahead and grow out of control and seed in our ditches, that also blows into our farmers' fields. So we need to actually have some strong representation on the municipal level to the provincial government, along with making sure that our residents have access to the information and resources that they need in a modern world, and go ahead and provide that to them. So those would be some of the ways immediately I would do that. And I've already started to work with the county, the Agricultural Services Board. I was at a meeting with them just on the 9th, no, sorry, the 8th, where I was bringing forward my concerns about the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, who are going to call some birds out in BC. I've been following that matter as a journalist and speaking to the residents and farmers around here about their concerns about overreach at that level, where there is no recourse when they make a decision. You have to take it to the federal court. And I've watched that matter very closely, and it's concerning to me that the discretion that they have is very, very ultimate. They have very little oversight. So those are the kind of issues I brought forward, and I'm pleased to announce that after my presentation to the ASB, I was able to get a motion passed to go ahead and write a letter to the president of the CFIA, Prime Minister Carney, Premier Daniel Smith, and many other government officials to go ahead and take a second look at this order, consider holding off on the call of these ostriches, and go ahead and provide the farmers with the ability to go ahead and prove the healthiness of these ostriches. So here's an example of before even the election, I'm getting involved on the board level and the community level to ensure that we are taking a close look at overreach from government at various levels.
Transparency is a key word that a lot of municipal politicians and a lot of candidates use, and it's usually one of those buzzwords that people throw out there just to say, "Oh, look, I said transparency." Now, I've been doing journalism for a few years now, and I feel very old saying that, but I remember getting started back in 2010 when covering municipal politics back in Ontario to where I am today. And whenever I hear a municipal politician use the word transparency, how do you plan to be more transparent under the rules that we have? Because there are things that you cannot talk about in the public, legal, land, anything in closed session. How do you plan to be transparent to the people of Division 6 in Brazeau County while still adhering to the rules that the provincial government has put into place around the MGA?
Well, there's a few ways. First, we can play within the rules to make sure that what we can bring forward is as much as we can. So example, budgets, projects, bidders, people who are providing information and supplies, materials to projects. This is stuff that we can go ahead and bring forward now today. It's available via a phone call, but we want to bring this available over the online services as well. And then also push the challenges that we find everywhere else. So where there are things that can't be brought forward right now under the rules, we go ahead and push and challenge those rules by go ahead and having conversations with various levels of government to figure out really why. Why is that stuff not so transparent? Why do we need freedom of information requests to get certain information? And if information is accessible via freedom of information request, why do we have to keep going through that process? So let's go ahead and open it up. So going forward, once we've identified certain information that's valuable to the residents, we just go ahead and continue to provide that. I'm also privacy sensitive when it comes to things like residents' names, information about where they live, or things like that that falls under the privacy concerns. We would maintain the privacy and make sure that that's no longer a concern. But when it comes to information, even if it's difficult to get, I'd like to bring that more forward for people. As a journalist, I've seen this as a problem when you're dealing with issues that you want to bring forward to the public, being able to have that transparency. And it's not just a word to me as a journalist. It's something I fight for daily, whether interviewing people, getting into the story, and actually checking behind the scenes and the sources. This is something I'm pretty used to, and I can see how even media sometimes isn't that transparent when it should be. But on a government level, in order to ensure that we can trust our government and respect and respond to them, we definitely need to make sure transparency is not just a word, it's an action that we're doing.
Do you trust Brazeau County?
Do I trust them? Yeah, I do, actually. I think Brazeau County is one of the better counties. There's a lot of hard work here. We're not perfect. There's definitely
No
some
one
history
is.
that we need to work through. That's okay, but overall, I do have a lot of faith in Brazeau County. Whenever I've gone to the county for an issue, I've had success bringing it forward. I haven't seen any hurdles or roadblocks, but I do know that some residents, when it comes to information like budgets and approvals and votes, there is some trouble there. Brazeau County has made some steps forward. Now putting all the meetings online was a great step forward, but we can do a few more steps. We can also have transcriptions so you can go and search them so you can find information easier. We can also provide limited in-camera sessions and push a little bit harder to limit how many times we go in camera, which basically means in private, and what we actually keep in front of the residents out in the open. So we're making some good steps in the right direction, but there's a few more steps I think we can make in the next few terms.
Now, I'll agree with that because I worked for a municipality at one point in time, and I can tell you that the in-camera session was always used as, oh, we're going to go use an in-camera session just to go talk about the issue. And then you're like, what was the issue? Oh, it's legal land or labor, so we can't talk about it in the public. It's like, okay, let's talk about what exactly it is. Explain to me what it is before you have to go in there. If it is labor, understandable. You have to negotiate things behind the camera. But tell us it is labor. Tell us why you are going behind the camera before you actually do it. That's just my own personal opinion. That's for Chris's opinion. But I want to turn to the issues because we want to make sure that people who are tuning in, who are listening, understand where you stand on the issues. Now, every municipal politician or candidate I've ever talked to, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal, always tell me the same thing. I have two ears and one mouth, so I should listen twice as much as I talk. Now, as podcasters ourselves, you and I, we like to talk, but I'm assuming you have also been listening during this campaign period. What are the top three macro issues that you're hearing from residents of Division 6 right now?
The main one right now is the weed control issue in the ditches because it has such a significant value and destruction to the crops out here. It actually was not well maintained the last few years. The spraying didn't work, and they haven't been mowing the ditches well. And there's also the jurisdiction issue where the province hasn't been doing their problem or their side as well. That's caused a lot of concern when it comes to yield and the amount of chemicals being put onto the farms right now in order to combat these weed issues. So that's one major issue. Transparency is a major issue here. So this came up a lot during our conversations with the public. They want to be able to get to the information and not have to go through freedom of information requests for the most part to get to that. So they definitely want to make sure that we are addressing that concern. And the last one here, I think, is going to be safety and security. So we do have a bit of a homelessness issue. That is again a multi-jurisdictional issue with the province, with the town of Drayton Valley, and the Brazeau County as well, where there's crime being committed in our community now. Properties going missing, and people are feeling unsafe walking around their community. And we want to definitely address that. And I have a zero tolerance proposal for the community here. Zero tolerance on the RCMP, who are turning a blind eye. Zero tolerance on the provincial level, who's also turning a blind eye, and they actually have the resources to address this. And a zero tolerance policy with the town of Drayton Valley as well, who seems to be, when the cameras are there, they seem to be very involved. But when the cameras leave, the issue just stays there. So my residents wanted to make sure that the safety and security concerns that are coming out of the province and Drayton Valley are not spilling over into the county as they are now. And we want to make sure that we have a lot more cooperation with the RCMP when it comes to cracking down on crime around here, because we definitely want to live in a nice, safe society.
I should have asked this at the beginning of the interview, but you've played in the sandbox a little bit, so I want to just clarify for myself. Where is Division 6 in Brazeau County? Is it near Drayton Valley or is it near other communities? I just want to make sure that I'm putting it in the proverbial map in my head right now. Where is Division 6?
It's the southeast corner of Brazeau
Okay.
County. So on the east side will be Breton, but Breton's its own municipality. And then on the west side is the hamlet of Buck Creek, and it's everything in between there. So just south of Highway 39, between 20 and 22, and down to about 474, 473 would be the south side of Division 6.
I appreciate that. So the reason I asked that is I want to play in the sandbox around crime and safety because it is the topic that is not just happening in Brazeau County, but it's happening a lot of the conversations I've been having with municipal leaders from across Alberta right now. Now, safety is one of these very circumvent things. I've never not felt safe when I've gone through Brazeau County. Now, I'm not saying that is everyone's experience, that is my experience. How do we make people feel safe? A zero tolerance policy, that is one way. But there's going to be people who will always say, I don't feel safe. So, how do you see your role as counselor in making sure people truly feel safe? Is it just regional collaboration with Drayton Valley, with the RCMP, with the provincial and federal government stakeholders? Or is there a way that you see the path forward to making sure 100% of the people feel truly safe in their community?
Well, one of the first ways is to make sure they feel heard. So when they're actually bringing forward these issues, whether it's to council, to the RCMP, or to the town of Drayton Valley itself, they need to feel heard. So a representative who will take their calls any time of the day, get back to them right away, and actually take it seriously. I myself has been the victim of crime out here where the RCMP was not interested in following up because the value amount wasn't high enough or there wasn't serial numbers. You can't have serial numbers on fuel, but when someone steals fuel from you, that actually hits the pocketbook quite well and quite hard. So if residents have a place where they feel they could be heard and not just dismissed, that's one way to go ahead and help them feel at least comfortable that someone's listening to what their concerns are. And then from that point, a strong representative like myself will then go to the partners that need to hear this, whether it's the RCMP, Drayton Valley, the province itself, or all of them, making sure that actually having my calls answered and getting answers for the residents be a fabulous way to make sure that they feel heard and something's going to happen. And then the communication, which will be an ongoing thing. So as we're working through the issues, maybe the issue is theft on property. Well, as the RCMP, are they actually cracking down on that? Do they have the same requirement they had when I had theft happen? I would fight against that and make sure that we have some good representation and policing happening here. It's amazing how quickly the community can feel safe when you see arrests happening and certain crime stops and then it's discouraged. So people don't even come here to bother because they know that they can get caught or they'll be prosecuted. So it's going to be a two-way road about communication. Let them be heard by being there for them as good representation and making sure we're going to the right partners that have to have this information and then follow up with them and bring that back to my ratepayers or residents so they actually know something's happening. And it's not just a phone call that goes nowhere. I want to make sure that they, because the same way I want to feel that something actually going to be happening when these complaints come forward.
So I want to put a pin in that because I'm going to circle back on being heard for 2 seconds, but I want to continue in the safety vein for a second. There's been a lot of talk in municipalities across Alberta right now about the RCMP's role in municipalities. Now, we have seen a white paper in the federal government saying that the RCMP may transition away from community policing into a more federal policing. Premier Smith, who I understand that you're going to be chatting with earlier sometime before the end of the campaign on your show, are you in favor of her path forward around municipal policing? And I shouldn't say her path forward, but her look in her sort of peek behind the curtain of municipal policing rather than the RCMP policing.
100%. So as you kind of highlighted there in 2030, the RCMP basically want to pull out of municipal policing completely and focus on federal. Danielle Smith was given the mandate by the UCP party and many Albertans to go ahead and bring in a provincial police force. I was in Edmonton during the Alberta Next panel where Danielle Smith asked this question, whether or not a provincial police force is something that people want. It was clear, 80 to 85% support of that. And this is one of the issues that I've been pushing for a long time as a journalist covering the federal courts and the municipal courts and provincial courts. For example, I was covering the Coots situation where the border crossing was blocked and then many people were arrested. So I actually sat in a courtroom in Lethbridge watching several of the court matters there, and I saw how the RCMP was basically taking orders from the federal level in order to prosecute local residents. And I'd like to see the RCMP go ahead and go back to the federal level only. So I've been pushing for a provincial policing force for quite some time. And as Danielle Smith was going through her leadership and making promises in that direction, I was very excited. I wasn't excited when she renewed the contract and she didn't seem to be taking large enough steps. But I have since been able to meet with her people and have conversations about this, that she's rolling out a municipal police force initiative. So various places she will support moving to a municipal police force, but that left the counties kind of left in limbo, where the rest of the rural areas was really unknown. So as a rural counselor for a county, this is where I put a lot of energy to make sure that come by 2030, we have this covered. Whether we end up having county police, provincial police, a combination of both, I would like to make sure that that is addressed. And that is also part of what I was talking about before about community safety, is making sure that going forward, we have a police force. Danielle Smith has brought forward sheriffs as an option, maybe a stopgap or permanent solution. We'll see. And yeah, you're correct. I'll be speaking with Danielle Smith on Tuesday about Alberta self-determination, see where she's going with that, and also what you learned on the panels, the Alberta Next panels. So the policing was one of the questions from that panel. So it's definitely going to be one of the things I'm going to be talking to her about.
Oh, I'll have to tune into that. The links will be in the show notes, but we're going to continue on talking about your municipal campaign for a few minutes. And I want to turn to the second area that you talked about. And you talked about transparency a little bit at the beginning of the interview, but I want to play in the sandbox a little bit more. Now, the one thing that I often hear from residents, and that is rural and urban across this province and across Canada, is the budget is very convoluted and it's very hard to read for the average resident out there. And there's always those hidden things that people are like, what is this? What does this mean to me? How do you see yourself ensuring that you are transparent with people, but, and this is the key part, educating people about what you're doing? Because transparency can be, hey, look at, we have the books open, that's great. But if I can't read them and I'm a municipally minded person, that really doesn't do bode well for democracy at the end of the day, does it?
Not at all. So one of the issues that I brought forward on my campaign itself, and this has been published already, so it's kind of interesting that you brought this up, is simple language budgeting. So it can be simplified. There's no reason to get all terminology and hide things. We can actually break it down pretty simple. And with the use of technology like the interactive maps that we have in Brazeau County, I was at a candidate meeting where the two candidates for reeve were there. And during that meeting, it came up that I would like to expand the interactive map so that you can click on it and you can see historical information about, say, a road. How much did it cost? How much are the budgets for it? How much is the projected maintenance? And if there's improvements, who's involved in this? And you can just click on it, break it down, and see that information. I'm happy to say that during that meeting, I was able to communicate with the current reeve and the potential future reeve because both candidates were there. And I got a commitment out of both of them in front of the public that moving forward, regardless who wins, and even if I don't win, we can still move this initiative forward to bring to county council the idea of expanding the interactive maps to provide more data for residents as a quick way to start getting some of that budgetary information in there. For example, how much does a road cost? How much does it cost over the last 10 years? What's the projected maintenance of that? And when we're doing projects and we're having bids on it, not just who's the winning bid, but who else bid on it? But we can actually see why decisions were made there. And these are the beginning steps, but I think we can take those steps, learn from that, and also simplify the budget communication back to the public. It doesn't have to be so complicated. If you want to jump down into the line by line item, you have that now. But if you want an overview, money in, money out, money saved, money spent, I think we can break it down a lot simpler.
The role of a counselor, the role of mayor, reeve, you have to be able to say no to people because I can imagine you're going to be approached by people who say, we want an outdoor pool for Division 6, we want X, Y, and Z, we want this issues covered. But at the end of the day, the municipality only has a limited supply of money. They cannot legally run a deficit. They can borrow, they can pass purchasing bylaws, but they cannot run a legal deficit according to the MGA. Now, Are you able to say no, but be transparent about why you are saying no to people, about why things can't be done for Brazeau County?
Well, from my experience, because part of my experience was a legal background and training. So I've had to deal with plaintiffs and litigants and defendants and applicants. And in those processes, you absolutely have to be able to explain, not just say no, but explain the no. Being able to define why something can't happen, use common sense reasoning for it, and communicate that. I think are some of the more powerful tools to ensure that people feel heard and they understand the reason. Simply saying no and leaving it there, I think is where the problem is. Saying no, but explaining why it can't, or maybe even explain what needs to happen before it can be a yes, but breaking down even the steps on how we can turn a no into a yes is part of the process of communicating with ratepayers and residents. So yeah, I can deliver difficult to hear news, but it will be done in such a way that they understand why it's a no, and how we can get to a yes if there is a path forward for that.
The role of a counselor is also to listen to all sides of the equation, not just the people that agree with you, not just the people who support you, the social media crowds. It means that you have to listen to people who may be liberal, who may be conservative, PPC, may be green, and you have to listen to them and you have to respectfully listen to them. How do you envision your role as counselor in being able to listen to everyone and listen to them in a way that they feel heard? Because listening is one thing, but also feeling heard is a completely different thing that I think a lot of municipal politicians fall short on in 2025.
I absolutely love this question because as a journalist, one of the first things I had to learn how to do is to grow some thick skin because you can't please everybody as a journalist. If you're doing your job right, everybody should be a little annoyed with you because the world's not perfect and there is no correct side to any story. So when you're working hard to bring the truth forward, you actually are going to ruffle feathers all over the place. And you have to get thick skin for that because if you don't, you're going to find yourself pandering to a group or trying to align with a group or the large group. And that's just the wrong way to do journalism. And I would bring that kind of thing forward. I'll give you a quick example here, Chris. During the meeting that we had on Tuesday here in Buck Creek, it was suggested that maybe the moderator should shut down any personal attacks or people staying off topic, going off topic and kind of getting more personal. And everybody on that panel got attacked, including myself, because when you're a journalist, you absolutely ruffle feathers, like I said. But I was the one sole voice on that panel that said, no, I think we should go ahead and let people speak because it gives us the opportunity to not just listen to what they're saying, but actually respond to them in a way that they actually get the answers they're looking for. There may be a misunderstanding or misinterpretation on somebody's actions or somebody's associations, and actually be given the opportunity as a panel member or a candidate to address a concern of a resident, even if it seems personal. It allowed me to clarify and give them the information they didn't have moments before. So you do have to listen and you have to have some thick skin, but then you have to, for me, it was actually an opportunity to go ahead and clarify the misunderstanding or misinterpretation of my journalism. And that actually worked for me. So the resident who was concerned about that, no longer concerned. And if we just shut down and didn't listen, they would be able to carry that concern forward. So I actually take on those opportunities and I welcome them because it allows me to get more truth forward. And that's kind of ultimately where it needs to be. It could be uncomfortable. It could be upsetting. If you have to say no to somebody, even if you explain it, they could still be upset. But being able to have the opportunity to explain, clarify, and understand actually went a long way. And that was an example on Tuesday where we were able to do that.
I think you're right. I think you do need to listen to people, even the people who are frustrated and angry, who do give personal insults towards politicians. You have to listen, but there's a fine line that you have to be sure that it's respectful, because the moment it crosses into I'm going to punch you at the end of this meeting because you're not listening to what I'm saying, that's the point in time when you have to sort of say, okay, enough is enough. We can respectfully disagree with our words, but the moment it turns violent is the moment where you start doxing me on social media or saying that I know where you live. That's the moment where I have to, it's just my own personal belief that you have to draw that line there and say, okay, maybe we need to step back and not have this conversation because we're both at a level where it could turn into something different. Don't you agree with that though?
You're not wrong because there is a distinction between civil discourse and criminal action. So
Yes.
when it moves into the criminal action, something that's covered by the criminal code, like a threat of violence or even incitement of violence, absolutely, that's a line that's crossed, and it shouldn't be crossed. But I am a proponent of free speech and open conversations. And yes, that line can get blurred a little bit, but when it gets to criminal threats, harassment, intimidation, that's a clear line that should not be crossed. I am not a proponent of bills like Bill C-63 or the new online hate Bill C-9. I'm not a proponent of those because I think hate is a feeling for some people and it's not necessarily something that actually can translate into harm. It can certainly hurt feelings, but when it comes to physical harm and stuff like that, I think there's a distinct line. And then the criminal code covers that already. So I wouldn't be a proponent of some of those kind of limits being introduced. But with free speech and the ability to communicate, and especially if you can communicate back in a civil way, you're not attacking them back or trying to shut them down, you can actually flesh a lot of things out. But I will agree with you, Chris. When it gets to the criminal code side of things, that would be a very hard line for me. I wouldn't tolerate threats or harassment of anybody, myself or my fellow counselors as well.
So we all have our own moral center that we believe what is right and what is wrong. And as a counselor, you are there to represent everyone. And that means you will have to balance what your moral compass says and where the people want you to go. Who wins in that scenario for you, Jason, when you're going to be around that council table and making those tough decisions? If you hear pulling numbers out of the air here, so this is not in stone, this is a hypothetical, something comes up and 100 people say to you, Jason, this is how we want you to vote. But you believe in the exact opposite. Who wins in that scenario? Is it always the people or is it always the internal Jason's moral compass?
That's a fantastic question, Chris. And in law school, we actually went through a whole course of separating your ethics from your morals because that could be an internal conflict. And ethics means doing the right thing according to the rules and the laws. And morals are the right thing according to your beliefs and traditions. And we've learned how to separate those two because if you convolute those and you put one above the other, like your morals above your ethics, you actually are doing a disservice to the public. As a representation, a representative, my job is to make sure that their voice is heard, irregardless of my personal morals. Now, on a county level, I wouldn't do anything illegal, and I wouldn't do anything outside of the bounds of the law. That's definitely takes priority. But as long as the residents' demands are within those, and they're within the power and jurisdiction of the council, it is my duty to represent the voice of the people. I couldn't see an example where I would have a conflict, but let me just try and make a scenario for you. If, for example, they needed to put a new road in and it went across my property, and that was the best line for the road, it was the safest, least expensive, and the best option for my residents, but it wasn't the best option for me because it went right through my garden, I would support the residents' voice on that one because that's what's necessary for residents. I wouldn't spend residents' money or taxpayers' money to reroute that road around my property or anything like that. I would have to say, okay, to my family, all right, we're going to have to move our garden because this is what's best for residents and for the tax ratepayers like us as well. So that has sometimes come up even as a journalist. When I'm covering a story, I'll have my own personal belief or my personal desire to see somebody who's innocent not be persecuted or prosecuted. Or even there might be a piece of me that says, I don't want to provide that part of the story because I like that person and I don't want them to look bad. However, as a journalist, the right thing to do is to tell the truth, the whole story, and make sure that it's brought out there. And even at times of putting my own personal relationships on the line, I've had to do that, and I will continue to do that. Now, thankfully for me, because my integrity is high and people understand that integrity is important, those personal relationships that were rocked by my integrity actually work out in the end. And there's a lot of respect that's built. So I've had to cross those bridges a few times. What's best for me and what's best for the public, I always go to the public's needs first on that one.
You're speaking my love language here, Jason, because I agree wholeheartedly. In 2025, we are so used to only siloing ourselves and talking to the people we agree with. And as a journalist yourself, and I don't consider myself a journalist, I consider myself a host of a show that talks about municipal issues. I have had to have those hard conversations with people and say, while you may not like it, this is the reality that's out there. I've had death threats come into my email because people say, why are you having this person on the show? Well, they're an elected official. They have the right to be on this show because we are a municipal affairs podcast. This is the way that we live. And this is the point of time when I say to myself, this is why I'm doing the show, because I want to have conversations. If you want to have a conversation with me, sit down with me on the record and we will have the conversation. If you don't, I don't have time for you right now. So there's my, again, I'm going into a lot of opinions right now, and I apologize, Jason. We're supposed to be talking about you. But I want to flip back to the final area that you talked about, and that is the ditches in Brazeau County and the challenges that face with. Now, some ditches are not going to be municipally owned. Some are going to be in the jurisdiction of the provincial government. How do you see yourself working with the provincial government in ensuring that Division 6 of Brazeau County gets what they deserve from the provincial government and gets the things that they need done? Because you're going to have to sometimes ruffle a few feathers with the provincial and federal government as a municipal leader. Are you willing to do that? Knowing that what you
100%.
just said.
And yeah, no, 100%. Let's take that one for an example. If we needed to mow that ditch in order to save the adjacent properties and the farmland, we mow it and then we invoice and we fight for the invoice. We do what's right. If the provincial government says, hey, look, it's not in our budget to do this year, and that's going to mean hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of damage to crops for our residents, we mow it. And then we figure out how to get that money back from the provincial government. With my experience in the legal system, I do understand what mitigating damages means. So if you take the steps to go ahead and mitigate damages like crop destruction, there's actual avenues in the legal system to ensure that as long as you're reasonable, we didn't do like buy new equipment just to do that road. Like as long as we're reasonable and we're using mitigating avenues here, so we're trying to lower the cost of damage, there is avenues to go ahead and recover. And I do believe that in times like that, where we take the action to mitigate damages, and then we can articulate back to the province how, well, you collected more in taxes and we were able to produce more and our yields were higher. There's wins for everybody here. And we had to go ahead and use our resources to take care of that. I do think we would have good cooperation out of the provincial government to take an action like that and then also recover our cost on that. And that would be an example of where we wouldn't wait for or pass the buck to wait for more damage to happen when we can take mitigating actions against it. But yeah, I absolutely am ready to have those conversations. The agricultural minister would hear from me a lot, our MLA, our MP, they would hear from me a lot to make sure that if we had to do what's right and our tax ratepayers had to pay for it, we'll make sure that that's compensated. And I'll explain why we have to do it that way. And also maybe even show how we expanded the revenue or the yields or even the tax collections of the various jurisdictions by taking these kind of measures.
Now, I'm very cautious of time here, and I have another meeting, so I want to make sure we start wrapping up here because you have to go out and door knock as well, and you have to get out on the doorsteps and talk to people as well. Um, we are less than, as of recording this, 10 days away from the campaign wrapping up. And on October 20th, hypothetically, the people of Brazeau County Division 6 put their trust into you. What is priority number one going to be for you as their next councillor-elect?
Well, as a new counselor for them, and this will be my first time representing them, the first thing I'm going to do, and I've already actually started to make the arrangements for this, is to start having meetings with residents. Here in Brazeau County, we actually have in our budget public outreach and the ability to go ahead and rent a hall and sit down and have conversations. It's already in our approved budget. It just hasn't been utilized. So immediately I would utilize that. So the first thing I want to do is start sitting down with residents, talking about their priorities, bringing the agendas to them. And the commitment I've made is before every county meeting, the day before, we'll have this open residents meeting where I'll have the agenda with me. We'll sit down, go through it, and then I'll be far more prepared at the county meeting. I want to be effective right away out of day one. So my first priority would be actually sit down with residents and find out how I can do that for them. I'm not going to presume or assume I know everything. I'm actually going to meet with them, before every single meeting, and I would do that on day one.
You will be sworn in not as Division 6 counselor, but you will be sworn in as a Brazeau County counselor. And that means you will have to look at everything through a county lens. Who wins in that internal struggle? We talk about the moral compass, but we also talk about Division 6 versus the greater good of Brazeau County. And I'm going to quote my favorite movie here, so I apologize if you've heard this numerous of times, everyone. But the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one sometimes. And that means that you have to look at everything through the county lens, not through just the Division 6 lens. How do you see yourself being able to be the champion that Division 6 needs, but also be the champion that Brazeau County has to be?
Cooperation and collaboration with the other counselors is a good start on that one. So I've already done that. I've already started on that. So I've met with almost all of them. There, Donna, who's retiring, she's the only one I haven't really spoken with, but I have met with the current reeve and the other counselors at this stage to have conversations. I wanted to kind of get a gauge of how's council work, what's the relationship, interpersonal relationship there. And I'm actually pleased to see that for the most part, it's actually pretty strong. So I would definitely sit down and continue to have those conversations amongst the counselors. There's a lot we can do outside of the council meeting when it comes to knowing what's going on and what we can all bring forward together. So collaborating and cooperating with the council, the entire council, in and outside of those meetings would be paramount for me. Because that's also how I'm going to be brought up to speed on the rest of the issues that are Brazeau County wide. I am a Division 6 resident, and I am pretty familiar with coffee time, and I'm hanging out with my local farmers. But I also want to learn more about all the other divisions. So through their representation, proper representation, I'm going to learn that pretty quickly, and collaborating with them, I think, will be an excellent start to that. And also that will open the door for when I want to bring things forward that are specific to Division 6. So if there's certain roads that need some special attention, or there's a business that needs more access, or we actually find that there's some noise around a particular operation, and they are Division 6 specific issues, I'll be able to bring that to the same group of collaborators and work with them as well, so that they can see how we can highlight that moving forward and represent my residents' needs, along with working with them on their residents' needs. And one of the things I would get out of the way right away is there seems to be kind of like this barrier between residents talking to different counselors. I would want to see that away. If there's something that a different resident and a different division wants to talk to me about, I'd welcome their phone call and be able to work with their division counselor as well. I would like to see those barriers kind of come down, because currently it's like a no-no to talk to residents from a different division, but we're all neighbors. So I don't see that really being a problem going forward. And I would encourage all residents to talk to any counselor that they think can assist them in Brazeau County. And that's some of the open door policy that I would have when it comes to residents of Brazeau. So I can learn more about what they need and work with their counselors to go ahead and get those done.
So, second last question before I let you go, Jason, and it's the important one. For those who are listening, I should mention this. The links to Jason's social media pages will be in the show notes below. So if you want to reach out and ask the questions that we didn't get to, because, well, it's my show and I get to ask the questions I want to ask because I like asking the questions I like to ask. But if you do have a question you want to ask Jason to make your decision a little bit easier on election day, reach out via the social media and the links that are in the show notes. But Jason, at the end of the day, a councilor's job is governance. You're not the administrator, you are the governance of the council. What does good governance mean to Jason Lavigne?
Okay, well, we keep bringing this word up about transparency, but we'll also bring up accountability. So I'm not expected to be perfect. I likely will, again, as a journalist, I ruffle all feathers. I likely will upset some people, and I want to be held accountable. And we kind of got a small taste of that during that meeting on Tuesday, where a resident thought they were going to hold me accountable to something. And I didn't shy away from it. I didn't think we needed to shut that down. And that's why I welcome that opportunity to go ahead and address it. So hold me accountable. Make sure that all government is held accountable. And I also want to practice what I preach. As a journalist for the last few years of going after the federal government, provincial government, and other government, I would like to see other people do that as well. So hold me accountable. And it's not just about transparency, it's about holding my feet to the fire as well. So I would make sure that that actually happens. I wouldn't shy away from it. I wouldn't run away from it. I wouldn't try and shut down conversations. I would welcome them. That's why I published my phone number, 587-206-8683. Anytime anyone can reach out, text, email, and contact me, and I will return it. And that's why I do that, is because that's part of accountability. I don't hide from people. So if I make a mistake or I'm doing something that's harmful, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, I want to hear about it and hold me accountable. I'm not afraid of that. So good governance is to make sure that you're doing the right thing, but also be held accountable if you don't.
My show has basically become the phone book of every Alberta municipal politician's phone number by the end of this campaign. But my final
Yeah.
question before I let you go, and it's the $1 million question. This is the one time of the interview where I turn the microphone over to you for as long or as little a time as you want. Jason, why should the people of Division 6 of Brazeau County put their trust into you on October 20th as their next councillor for the great county?
It's because I'm looking forward to our future, make sure it's prosperous. I definitely want to expand the services that are available to you today. I'm already doing that for you, and I would continue to do that as a resident. If I am not able to become your counselor this time around, I will be fighting for you for next time around, but I'll be doing it every single day to the next election. If you do give me the pleasure to serve for you as your representation, I'll make sure that every single day you can get a hold of me. I will take your call. I will respond to you, and I will represent you. I have my moral beliefs. I'm a very strong conservative Christian, but I will absolutely make sure that when I bring forward my governance and ability to bring forward your voice, it will be your voice that I'm bringing forward. And if you ever have trouble with what I'm doing, I won't shy away from it. I actually welcome that because it helps me grow, and I absolutely will develop more thick skin. And then I can also take it up with the other counselors. I'm already collaborating with them before the election's even held to just learn about what it is that's important to everybody. That's how I was able to answer most of your questions here today. It's because I've already started the process of getting myself up to speed on what's important in Brazeau. And I will continue to do that. So I hope I've demonstrated that to you today. And imagine what I can do if I do have your voice and your vote. I can do far more than I'm even doing today because people will return more of my calls, and I'll be able to write letters and get on boards and be far more participating in that process for you. So if I do have the ability to do that for you, I won't break that trust. I definitely won't make mistakes, but I'll also make sure that I'm accountable and I correct them as I move forward. So go ahead and put your faith into me, and I won't let you down.
So I know I said that was going to be my last question, but if anyone has ever listened to any of my shows, I always ask one more questions after I ask the $1 million question. And I think you're up for the question, and I apologize if it comes out of left field, but it's something that you just said. Now you're a journalist, you have your own show, you have your podcast, and you are running to be a counselor for Brazeau County. After October 20th, how do you balance those two roles? Because those are two very competing roles, because you have to look at what you're getting at council and you have to have some things that are confidential and some things that you can't release right away. But as a journalist, you want to get the inside scoop. How do you see your role being able to or yourself being able to balance those two things? Or will the journalist side of you cease to exist on October 21st?
That's a fantastic question, Chris. And I'm really glad that you brought that out, even from left field, because that is something I'm going to have to work on. Being able to balance my personal life with my responsibility as a journalist has been something I've been working on a lot. But being able to fully represent, and this is something I've made a commitment to everybody that I've spoken to so far, is my primary first job is going to be the counselor, not journalism. I will use the skills I developed over the years as a journalist to go ahead and leverage how I can become a better representative for you. But I would have to put my journalism on a back seat. I am working really hard to actually wrap that up now. That's why I have several interviews even today to kind of wrap that up with the anticipation that I will be less available as a journalist after October 20th. For example, my interview with Danielle Smith, I'm going to have to get that done and out of the way because once I become a counselor, I may become a thorn in her side. So I'm definitely going to make sure that I can take care of some of my responsibilities and commitments I have today to get myself ready to be a full-time representative, a counselor. I will still continue to do things like meeting with people, doing interviews, going to events, having speaking, but I'll be doing that as a counselor and as a member of Alberta, a resident of Alberta, as there's a lot of important issues coming up for Alberta over the next couple of years. And I'm still going to be very active in that. But my commitment to all my residents is I will be full-time counselor. And then if I don't win that position as a full-time counselor, I will still leverage a lot of the power that I have as a journalist to go ahead and still be involved in my community and prepare myself for the next election, whenever that might be. But it was a fantastic question, Chris. It's something my wife and I sat down and had conversations about. And I'm also able to say my wife has been my partner on the journalism as well. So she may have to pick up more of the shows, maybe a little bit of solo stuff to keep some of that going. But I would be a counselor first, a journalist second, when presented with that opportunity.
Well, Jason, best of luck in the next 10 days or 7 days as of this coming out. But I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. It's always a pleasure to sit down with municipally minded people who are running for the reasons they believe are passionate or they are passionate about. And I get that sense after the 40, almost 50-minute conversation we've had that you are truly passionate about what you believe in and where you want to see Brazeau County and even Alberta go forward. So thank you so much for doing this.
Chris, no, thank you very much for you doing this. The work on the other side of this camera, I understand how difficult it can be and sometimes thankless. So no, thank you very much for also providing me this opportunity. You were quick, responsive, and here we are doing the interview right away. So I also want to thank you for what you're doing for all of us who want to have a better future for our children and our residents.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 here on Municipal Affairs. Quick editorial note time. We are entering the last few days of this campaign, and that means our attention is turning to election night. So between now and Monday, October 20th, our focus will be on what happens on election night. If you want to learn more about the coverage that we are going to be doing, head over to our YouTube channel and hit that follow and reminder button on the Decision 2025 Alberta Municipal Votes page. We will be going live at 7:30 on October 20th across Alberta to talk about the election and talk about the results as they come in, but also talk with former mayors, former councillors, current councillors, and so many more people across the night and throughout the night. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 soon. Till then, everyone.